Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Moving Markets Podcast. It is Monday, August the 18th, 2025. U.S. stock market has been closed for 25 minutes, and all things considered, the markets were, I would say, relatively flat today. I don't think there was, there was a couple of times throughout the day where the markets were up a little bit higher than where they finished, and a couple of times where they were a little bit lower than where they finished. The NASDAQ managed to eke into positive territory, but we're talking 6.8 points, which is 0.03%. So that's really not much at all. The S&P finished minus 0.65. That's as close to flat as you could possibly get. I mean, that's one hundredth of 1%. And even the Dow Jones finishing down 34.3 is only 0.08%. So we're not even talking a tenth of a percent on any one of the major indexes. So pretty flat day overall. And this on CNBC's website right here, this is kind of why investors look ahead to the Powell speech. Jerome Powell is scheduled to speak at the end of the week. I wish he wouldn't. I honestly wish he would go away and never speak again. I wish he would be replaced. I wish we would never hear the name Jerome Powell again unless we were making some historical reference to possibly the worst Fed chair, at least in my lifetime. But he is going to speak on Friday, and he's going to, I believe at the end of his speech, there is some question and answer, and he's going to be asked about, is he behind the curve on making a cut? Should he have made a cut sooner? Is he going to make a cut in this next meeting? And he's going to give the standard canned answer. We're data dependent. And then he's going to blame tariffs for the reason why he's not making cuts so far. And he's going to point to the PPI report from last week and say that's evidence of tariffs affecting inflation. It could be. It's not conclusively. And if that's the first time you're hearing something like that, go back and listen to the last couple of podcasts I did at the end of last week. I won't get off on that subject again. The other thing going on right now is this meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky and some other European leaders and President Trump. They met for, I believe, several hours today. It's going to be interesting how this plays out. I know there are people who just want to see this war come to an end, no matter how that happens. If that means Ukraine having to give up a little bit more than what it already has, there's a lot of people that think that would be okay. There are people who I believe genuinely, as long as their own sons and daughters are not the ones dying on the front, I believe there's people that want this war to go on because they profit from it. I believe they want the spending to continue, the weapons to continue to be made and spent, and I think you genuinely have people that are like that and that want to see that. I hate the idea of Vladimir Putin getting to keep any amount of land that he has taken, but if they drew a line where the battlefront currently is and said Putin gets no more than that, and that's unfortunate for Ukraine, but they have lost this war and the bloodshed needs to end. I'm one of those individuals that hate to see that happen, but it might be the price that has to be paid for an end to come to this horrible war. So it's a tough one. I mentioned last week, again, I won't go off too much more on this, but it's a very, very tough situation, and we'll see how it plays out. There'll be a lot more to talk about as the week goes on in terms of how the markets move. Housing starts tomorrow. I don't know if that'll be much of a market mover. I think people expect that number to not be real good. They expect it to be pretty flat or even down a little bit from the prior month's numbers. I know this is really small probably on your screen, but prior month was 1.32 million. The consensus estimate is 1.29. So the markets are analysts are expecting a little bit of a downturn there, and that's most likely what will happen. It's not going to be a shock to anyone. A real super horrific miss would probably move the needle a little bit, but I don't expect that. Later in the week, until we get to the jobs numbers and the Philadelphia Fed manufacturing numbers, Until we get there on Thursday, I don't think the other reports and the other news, the FOMC minutes on Wednesday will be interesting, but I don't know, again, if that's going to be a move the needle. Everyone knows that there were a couple of Fed govs that were in dissent on Powell's decision to not cut rates, and that's unusual. Usually the Fed govs are in lockstep with each other, but there are a couple of members that have dissented, and so it could be the minutes could be interesting, but I really don't think they're going to move the needle dramatically. I think progress or the lack of progress in this whole Ukraine-Russia situation, earnings, because you've got Home Depot reports, I believe tomorrow morning, Target reports in the next day or two, Walmart reports this week, Lowe's reports this week. They're going to give us a better idea of what the big retail companies feel like the American consumer is doing. They're going to give us a better look at the health of the consumer. That's a better way to say that. So we'll see how all that plays out. All right. New trade this week. So let me before I even talk about the I'll talk about the new trade first. Then we'll go back and look at what we have open already. Down here at 1200, I feel like Netflix has a pretty solid level of support. Now, granted, they dipped below that, but they pushed right back up through that really, really fast, and they hesitated going down below it for a couple of days. I think that 1200 is the strongest level of support, and based on put call ratios and where they're at, the expectation is that even if Netflix sold off a little bit in the next few days, it probably wouldn't come below 1200. So we did a 1200 short, 1195 long, $5 spread in the money bull call. It's going to cost us, assuming we can get in tomorrow, it's going to cost us about $4, between $4.10 and $4.15, assuming we can get in. And then I expect we'll be above 1200 till the end of the week and hit our full target profit, which is high, 498. I want to get 20% out of this one. That would be $4.98 if we got filled at 415. The thing we got to watch on this one is because Powell is speaking in the morning on Friday, and I almost expect him to say something that is going to tick me off. It's just what I've come to expect with him. If we've got 12, 13, 14% return on Netflix prior to Powell speaking on Friday morning, I think we'll take it and get out of the trade. So in the money bull call, and we're actually doing that for the second week in a row. Now we've got an in the money bull call on Meta, and Meta had a sell-off today, one that I'm not too worried about. By the end of the day, they came way up off the low of the day. We're clear down here at 750 for our short call and 745 for our long call. I don't think there's much of a chance that Meta gets close to that. I think we're going to be absolutely fine. Obviously we'll be keeping a close eye on it and watching it. It fell enough today that I think it took us just ever so slightly out of the profit column. We might be down just a tiny bit in this trade, but I think we're going to be fine. I think Meta I think they'll come back tomorrow. I think today was a little bit of a fluke. I'm not too concerned about it. I think the percentage they were down wasn't all that bad, and I don't think they're in any jeopardy of, dipping all the way down to that 750 mark. They were down $17 a share. I guess if they had a second day in a row of $17 down or more, then we'd have to be a little bit worried, but I think we'll be okay on this one. Our other spread trades, Palantir was down a little bit today, but I mentioned this last week. I'm actually kind of hopeful that Palantir does come right down here and touch 170. And I think they're, 4 days in a row of sell-off now. None of those days are big, huge sell-off. I think this is mostly profit taking. I think it's mostly just people that have made so much money in Palantir, they're looking and saying, we've got to cash in on some of these profits, and that's kind of an understandable thing. If Palantir does come down and touch 170, I am going to buy to close the short call on our spread trade and kind of reposition for a longer run with the long call. So I like where we're at on that. Nvidia had a little bit of upward movement today. I'm hoping for a little bit more tomorrow, and we will exit Nvidia by the end of this week because they report in the middle of next week. And I'd rather be out of them, maybe do a new trade at the beginning of next week that is non-directional on Nvidia, and then get back into something long-term if they start another climb towards the upside. The Palo Alto Network trade we have, Palo Alto Network reported after the market closed today. As of right now, everything is looking absolutely fantastic. They're up. They were up a little bit higher than this, but still they're looking like they're going to trend to the upside, and we're going to be in fantastic shape on that trade as well. And CrowdStrike, I'm not sure what to do on right this second. I'm still kind of not worried about CrowdStrike coming back. It's beat up pretty badly. It's got to go a ways back up to get our trade profitable, but I think our short call will be worth very little, as it seems to have held support now at 420. That's certainly looking like it's established itself as some strong support. You can see it was tested there, and it's come all the way back down there and tested it really good right now. I think once it starts to get a move back to the upside, it'll be pretty quick, and I think we'll ultimately end up in really good shape on that trade. On the triple play side of things, put out a new trade today on Home Depot and Target. I got filled on Home Depot. I did not get filled on Target. We also exited Palo Alto Networks, the one that we put on last week, and then I re-entered at some different strike prices, and I think we'll hit full target profit with the new strike price trade we have. Now, on the triple play trade, there is concern over AMD that had another little bit of a down day today, and there is concern over Microsoft. There's a lot of time left for these stocks to trade this week. The technical, I've been watching Microsoft very close all day long. A couple of times the RSI dipped below 50, but then they rallied just a little bit at the end of the day and finished off their low. Haven't crossed over on these two indicators yet, and I think Microsoft is going to start back up and move back up this week. Right now, I would be lying if I said it didn't bother me that they were down today, but I think they're ready to turn the corner and move back up. There's really not a reason for Microsoft to be trading down, and I think they'll go back up, and I think they'll move up high enough for us to be in good shape this week. I feel the same way about AMD, but I'll tell you honestly, AMD, I mentioned last week, I think this pattern started probably right here. Some sell-off up, 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 a little bit of sell-off. I think that pattern is going to repeat. The challenge is that the timing is not consistent on this pattern. The number of days that it trades down is not consistent. I do think AMD is going to avoid technical crossovers on these indicators. I think it's going to move back up. I'm not sure we won't have to roll it out one more time. I'm hopeful that it gets some momentum in the next day or two and starts moving to the upside. Again, hard to see it give up a little bit more today, but it doesn't have to have much of a move up for us to be back in really good shape on AMD. So I'm just going to, today's Monday, there's 4 days of trading left this week. I'm not going to get overly worried about it right now. A little bit more aftermarket movement to the downside, but again, they don't have to move up very far for us to be back in a profitable spot. I think that's, DoorDash. We rolled DoorDash out a week, and we turned DoorDash into a bear call spread instead of a bull call spread. And of course, the son of a gun had a nice move to the upside today. I feel like it's Murphy's Law now with DoorDash. I was so close to getting out of this trade the day after its earnings report, the first trading day after its earnings report. We got to watch it really closely. If it's up again tomorrow, probably we've got to make another adjustment. I don't think we want to wait for it to move back above 255 and then give it another day to see if it drops back below that. If it's not dropping tomorrow at the open, be watching Discord if at all possible. We'll make an adjustment to it. All right. That's basically it for today. I'm going to wrap up right there. I'm going to get this posted online. Have a great rest of your day. I will be on live tomorrow about 30 minutes after the open of the market. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.